Since joining the Blues in 2022 for a deal worth about £62 million, Cucurella has gone from zero to hero. But how exactly has he done that? To get to the bottom of it, we need to start with his time under Graham Potter. Under Potter, Cucurella played in a various amount of positions, including that left centre-back position, inverting from left-back, also as a nominal left-back, and of course as a left wing-back at times. Under Graham Potter, Cucurella completed 1.55 progressive carries and 4.4 progressive passes per 90, this being the most progressive passes he's made per 90 since joining the club. He was also attempting the most passes with 71.5 and making the most completed passes with 60.2 in his Chelsea career, but only completing 84.2% of his passes. Cucurella was making 3.36 tackles, 1.59 blocks and 0.99 interceptions with 6.9 recoveries per 90. But fast forward to Cucurella's time under Pochettino, which was probably the most telling time of his Chelsea career so far. Watching back some of last season's games, Cucurella always gave you what you know he has, the intensity, that little bit of bite, and that 1v1 ability to defend his area. However, at times last season, especially with Raheem Sterling on his side of the pitch, he would be left in very isolated areas with no real support, to the point where if he was over-aggressive, teams would be able to overload that side of the pitch and get in behind him, which didn't suit his style of play whatsoever. Under Pochettino, his progressive carries actually went up with 1.57, so not by much, but his progressive passes went down with 2.53 per 90. Again, the passes he was attempted did go down to 60.4 and only 52.3 passes were being completed, his pass completion going up slightly to 86.6%. His volume of defensive actions was still high with 3.13 tackles, 1.82 blocks and 1.05 interceptions with 4.85 recoveries per 90. But towards the back end of last season, under Pochettino, to give Pochettino credit as well, but also under Maresca especially, we're starting to see Cucurella platformed in the best way possible to get the best out of his attributes, using that tenacity and 1v1 defensive ability. Whether it be jumping out from the back three to attack and duel in the middle of the pitch, having the likes of Cole and Fofana sweep up behind him, or even finding himself in these attacking pockets of space with lots of players around him in the counter press to allow him to be aggressive, Maresca has found the best possible way to platform Cucurella. Now, Cucurella's stats might not read as well, with 1.21 progressive carries, 3.36 progressive passes per 90, only 58.5 passes attempted, with 52.1 passes completed, having the highest completion rate so far of 89.0%. And lastly, he's still making 2.07 tackles, 1.5 blocks and 0.85 interceptions with 4.21 recoveries per 90. So, despite some of those individual metrics going down, Cucurella is clearly a key cog in the whole Enzo Maresca tactical wheel. And why exactly is that? Let's go have a look on the tactics board. So we're on the tactics board and we're going to look at how Maresca has continued to get the best out of Cucurella, because of course we saw that little upbeat of form towards sort of the back half of last season, even just the second half of the season under Pochettino, and we spoke about why that sort of helped him. But how has Maresca continued to platform Cucurella in the way that gets the best out of him? And I think the important thing to just quickly note is, of course, there's outside factors. There's the fact that he was settling in at the club, the fact that he had a few things go on outside of the club away from football, which was sort of given out in the media. And then, of course, you've just got like his settling period and all these sort of other little intricacies. But we're talking on the football side of things, what has improved on the football side of things on the pitch to help get the best out of him. And I think the best way to look at it is, as we've touched on in the start of the video, the attributes of Cucurella have always been there. He's always had certain attributes that make him a standout player in sort of most terms of the pitch, whether that's defensively, counter-pressing, in forward areas. He's distinct in what he does. We know what you're going to get from Cucurella. He's an intense footballer. He can be a bit of a nuisance, and he can get in opposition's faces and make it hard for them to play, especially when 1v1 defending out wide as well. So how do you platform a player like that? Well, the best way to do it is how Maresca's done it, because Maresca, and I said this in my preview when Maresca first joined the club, Cucurella and Maresca's going to love Cucurella because the intensity that he shows is something Maresca wants in terms of pressing. And what I mean by that is, whenever the ball sort of breaks in these areas, Maresca wants a player like Cucurella to jump and be aggressive, because even if he doesn't win the ball himself, he's going to force a loose ball. And him pressing with aggression triggers the other players to press with aggression. And allowing that, because essentially if nobody's putting pressure on the ball and these guys start to step up, that's when you can get hurt of a ball over the top, because there's no pressure on the ball. But as soon as Cucurella makes that first contact, which is something he does really well, and something he does really well is actually sustain that pressure. He does really well at getting close to the ball, but not just getting completely turned on the first sort of touch. What he'll then do is he'll sort of, if a player does like shift it to here, he'll sort of shift his feet really nicely and stick with the ball for as long as possible before getting beaten, which then allows these players to be aggressive around him and swarm that ball so that then if they do get round Cucurella, by the time they do, Tosin can step in or Casado can step in or even one of the retreating midfielders can step in. And that is exactly what the best way you can describe the best way to get the best out of Cucurella is, because using his intensity in the right manner and allowing him to be that first point of reference on the ball, because that is what he's best at. We see it time and time again. And this isn't just the case when he's in here, when he's in here as well. Can he, again, if the ball breaks here, can he get to the ball first? Can he be that counter pressing reference to then allow other players to step? And most importantly, when he's in this back line, so let's just move, for example, let's just, for the sake of it, we'll go like this. When he's in this back three as well, and he's on the ball breaks here, it allows him to step into these areas with aggression to win the ball back, knowing that his wingers, well, especially on his side, but both wingers, they have to work hard in Maresca's system to cover. Because if he steps up and he does get beaten, someone has to be there. Cole has to be able to cover as well, and Tosin has to cover, and it sort of has to all shift over like this. And of course, Gusto will be retreating as well. And I think the overall structure of the team is built to allow Cucurella to be aggressive and to be himself, because Maresca knows that the best way to get the best out of Cucurella is to allow him to be that tenacious player, to win his duels, and then when we do win the ball, we can benefit from it on the attack as well. But it also just injects the whole team with this sort of energy, and you can really see that as time has gone on and as this is building, Cucurella is just a real forefront of the team in terms of a reference point off the ball for other players to sort of start to make their movements in a more aggressive manner. And him being that trigger point, as I said, it protects him as well, because that means when he does go aggressive, if he gets beaten, what would happen early in sort of his Potter days, especially, is he'd go very aggressive. And then if he did get beaten, you'd have Silva, who's sort of dropped off really deep. You had Sterling all the way up here, who was just not really helping. And even Fernandez, who's not the best. That's not his best role to cover those areas, right? So what you then end up with is Cucurella trying to be aggressive, trying to do what he does best, and ball gets knocked around him, and literally I don't know why there's so many arrows there. Look at the space that opens up instantly. Okay, Gusto wouldn't be there. It would be something a bit more sort of like this, I guess. But the point is, the space would be huge in this gap here. But the difference now is Cucurella making that pressure means one's retreating to help if that ball does go round. This player is more ready to make a push sort of back towards goal. Again, it is sometimes Enzo, but that work rate has had to improve. Cole can then come over into this zone. Tosin can come over, and the whole team shifts as one around the movement of Cucurella. And I think the platforming to get Cucurella playing his best football is purely based around making him that fulcrum out of possession and that metronome, that sort of that point of reference. The other thing to note would probably be just the simplicity of allowing Cucurella to sort of improve on the ball. We spoke about his passing stats. They're nothing special, but they've improved slightly in the sense that, sorry, just moving all this back, in the sense that the short passes, the simplicity of passes, and his ability to circulate play have all improved slowly over time. And again, I think that the importance of this is you're using Cucurella to his strengths. You know what he can do, you know what he can't do. He's good at receiving the ball under pressure because he can use his body well. He can play simple passes, little short passes into here. If he does receive it in pressure here, like if he's playing as the 10, he can receive the ball and he can play short, simple passes back. But he's never going to overexpand his sort of kit. Yes, if he gets into these sort of wide areas out here near Sancho, then he'll put the ball into the box and he can put something in sort of whether it's a cross or whether he goes down the line and puts one into the box, because that is sort of a one-off ball. But what he's not having to do now is find these sort of passes from these zones at left back to really like incisively break the lines and almost play risky passes to find Sancho or to find Palmer, because the system around him is set up that he's always going to have a short pass on to allow him to just continue circulating possession and keep things simple. He can either play a short one into Sancho down the line, he can play a short one back to one of these players here, or if Cole's stepping over to here, or Palmer will drift into a space and one of these two passes will be on in a triangle. So keeping Cucurella's passing range simple yet effective is another way that you're getting the best out of Cucurella, because you're not seeing him lose the ball in high up positions as often and not having to get back and really cover those long distances without extra cover around him, like we said earlier, in terms of other people pressing with him. So I think overall, it's culminated that over time, Cucurella has just been platformed to the way that you get the best out of his strengths and you nullify the few weaknesses that he does have by ensuring that when he does go, the rest of the team knows that that is a trigger point for the rest of them to go, because if they don't trigger with Cucurella, then the pitch will open up. So I think it's a good conscious effort from the staff, the players, Cucurella and his teammates that have made Cucurella's rise to the top all that more sort of easy, I guess, is the best way to put it. Let me know what you think about Cucurella's really huge improvement since the start of his career. It really is nice to see, because he was getting big criticism, getting booed at Stamford Bridge under Potter. And then even in the first sort of half under Pochettino, the games he did play were actually okay, but it just took him a little while to get back into it because he'd had such a poor start under Potter. And it took time for him to build up that trust again and to really just start being himself. And I think when you have Cucurella in a happy state, being himself, being aggressive, and just you can see it now. He exudes energy. He's got the energy. He seems like he's a funny guy around the camp. A lot of people seem to like him. Very likable character. And I think everything is just coming together for Cucurella, and I think it's absolutely amazing to see. I'm very happy for him. Let me know your thoughts on Cucurella and his resurgence at Chelsea. Any questions, do leave them in the comments and I will try to get to them as soon as possible. Drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.